My name is Lucy Bennett. I'm 33 years old, and 7 weeks after I walked away from a relationship that looked stable from the outside, I finally understood something I should have seen much earlier. That when someone starts redefining needs to justify secrecy, the relationship is already over. I just hadn't admitted it yet. Not until that Friday night. On paper, Daniel and I made sense. We lived in a clean, modern condo in Tampa, floor-to-ceiling windows, neutral furniture, the kind of place people compliment when they don't know what else to say. Everything looked balanced, controlled, intentional. I worked in procurement for a medical distribution company. Structured, predictable, stable. I made just over $90,000 a year. Daniel was different, more fluid. He worked in client partnerships for a boutique marketing firm. His income came in waves, sometimes impressive, sometimes uncertain. He called it freedom. I used to admire that. Now I realize it gave him room to move in ways I couldn't track. Daniel was the kind of man people noticed. Easy smile, confident posture, that precise kind of eye contact that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. He knew when to laugh, when to lean in, when to lower his voice just enough to make a sentence feel personal. Looking back, that was probably the first warning. Some people don't just know how to talk, they know how to steer. For months, something had been off. Not loud, not obvious, just wrong in a way I couldn't prove. More late dinners that ran over, more moments where his phone would tilt just slightly out of view. More nights where he came home smelling like places we had never gone together. And every time I asked, he didn't get angry. He got annoyed, like my questions were the problem. Lucy, you're making normal things sound ugly. You need to stop looking for problems that don't exist. So I did what people do when they're afraid of losing something that still looks intact. I made myself smaller. I stopped asking follow-up questions. I softened my tone. I let silence fill in where honesty should have been. And for a while, it worked, at least on the surface. Then came the launch dinner. Daniel told me it mattered that I showed up. Said people notice the partners who support you. Said it reflected on him. So I went. Straight from work, changing in the office bathroom, rushing across downtown traffic, paying too much for valet because the lot was full. I carried the champagne he had asked me to bring, rehearsing polite introductions in my head. The rooftop was loud. String lights. Open bar. The skyline glowing behind glass walls. Everyone looked like they were performing a version of themselves. Daniel kissed me on the cheek when I arrived. Quick, distracted. He took the champagne, introduced me to a few coworkers too fast to remember, then drifted away, toward her. Her name was Vanessa. I already knew it. She was the one I had been told not to worry about. She's just dramatic, he'd said once. She flirts with everyone. It's exhausting. That explanation made sense at the time. Now it felt rehearsed. I stayed polite, made small talk, smiled when expected. Eventually, I found myself near the indoor bar, waiting for sparkling water because I still had to drive. That's when I heard him laugh. Not the social laugh. The real one. I turned slightly. He was maybe 10 feet away, partially hidden behind a divider planter. Vanessa was standing close to him. Another coworker lingered nearby, her name, Elise, drifting back into my memory. I wasn't trying to listen, but then I heard my name. Elise said, "So what happens if Lucy finds out?" There was a pause. Daniel took a sip of his drink. Then he said casually, like it was nothing, "Lucy notices patterns, not details. That's why this works." Vanessa laughed. Elise muttered something about it being risky. Daniel shrugged, and then he said it. I needed something she stopped giving me. Something inside me went still. Not anger, not panic, just clarity. That quiet internal shift where denial runs out of space to hide. I waited. Waited until Elise got pulled away by someone calling her name. Then I walked toward him. "Can we talk?" I asked. He looked irritated immediately. Vanessa looked entertained. That told me more than anything else. We stepped toward the service hallway, just out of earshot. I repeated exactly what I had heard. Word for word. He didn't deny it. That was the worst part. He crossed his arms like I was the one creating inconvenience and said, "Lucy, I needed something you stopped giving me." I just stared at him. He softened his tone slightly, like that would help. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just needed to feel wanted again." That sentence might have worked on me months earlier, maybe even weeks. But standing there under restaurant lights, knowing the woman he chose was just a few steps away, pretending not to watch, all I felt was tired. Tired of second-guessing myself. Tired of adjusting to fit something that kept moving. So I nodded once, and I said calmly, "Then she can have the rest too." He blinked. "What?" "Then she can have the rest too," I repeated. "We're done." He looked stunned. Not guilty. not ashamed. Stunned, like I had skipped a scene he was expecting, like I was supposed to cry, to negotiate, to ask questions that gave him room to explain. Instead, I gave him nothing. "Don't do this here," he said under his breath. I held his gaze. "You already did." Then I walked away. By the time I reached the valet stand, my phone had already started vibrating. "Lucy, pick up. You're overreacting. It's not what you think. Come back upstairs. Don't humiliate me like this." That last one almost made me smile. I didn't reply. I drove home, took off my shoes, and started packing. Not angry, not rushed, methodical. Like I was finally finishing something that had been quietly ending for months. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was focused. There's a difference. Heartbreak is loud. It pulls you into memories, into questions, into all the things you wish you had said differently. What I felt was quiet, precise. Like every unanswered question I had ignored over the past few months had finally aligned into something simple enough to act on. So I packed. Not chaotically, not destructively, carefully. Daniel's clothes were folded into storage bins, categorized without me even thinking about it. Work shirts, casual, gym. His shoes paired and wrapped. His watch box taped shut. His grooming products sealed into zip bags so nothing would spill. The framed print he insisted made the living room feel more upscale went back into the original box in the hall closet. The spare duvet his mother bought him last Christmas got vacuum sealed because I already had the bags. I didn't rush. I didn't hesitate. At 11:14 p.m., I booked a locksmith for the next morning. At 11:21, I emailed building management. Daniel Bennett is no longer authorized for resident access or garage entry, effective Friday at noon. At 11:39, I texted my neighbor, Graham, 52, retired Coast Guard, the kind of man who treats nonsense like something that needs to be contained quickly before it spreads. "Can you stand by tomorrow for a pickup?" He replied in under a minute. "Sure, what time?" "Afternoon." "Got it." Daniel called 13 times between midnight and 1:30 a.m. Left 2 voicemails. The first one was sharp, frustrated. "Lucy, this is insane. You don't end 3 years over one conversation. Pick up the phone." The second one, softer. There were tears in it. "Lucy, please don't make a permanent decision because of one ugly moment. You heard one sentence out of context." One sentence? Not an affair. Not betrayal. A sentence. I stared at my phone while it played. Then I set it face down and kept packing. By morning, everything that belonged to him was stacked neatly by the door. The locksmith finished by 9:10 a.m. I tested the new lock twice. Not because I thought it would fail. Building management confirmed his garage access had been deactivated. At 12:06 p.m., I sent one message. "Your things are packed. Pick up windows. 2 o'clock, 3 p.m. or 6 o'clock, 7 p.m. Graham will be present. Choose one." He replied instantly, "You changed the locks." "Yes. You can't throw me out over one mistake." I stared at that word. Mistake. "This is not a conversation," I typed. "Pick a time." A minute later, 6 o'clock. He arrived at 6:18. Not alone. Of course not. His friend, Riley, stepped out of the passenger side first, scanning the building like she was walking into something unstable. Daniel followed. Baseball cap pulled low. Sunglasses, even though the sun was already dipping behind the buildings. He was wearing the gray hoodie I used to steal from him after long days when I wanted comfort without having to ask for it. Now it just looked like a costume. Graham stood beside me near the lobby cart, arms crossed, presence steady and silent. I made 2 trips. That was all it took. Everything reduced to labeled bins and suitcases. Daniel stared at them for a long second. Then he looked at me. "So that's it?" "Yes." "Lucy, come on," he exhaled, pulling his sunglasses off. "Over one mistake?" I met his eyes. "No, over what that mistake says about everything else." Riley stepped forward slightly, like she was about to soften the moment, smooth the edges. Graham cut in before she could. "Let's keep this moving." His tone wasn't aggressive, just final. And it worked. Public spaces have a way of stripping emotion down to its essentials. No scenes, no drawn-out arguments, just action. Daniel knew that. He loaded the bins into the SUV one by one. Slower than necessary, like time itself might change something if he stretched it long enough. When the last suitcase was in, he turned back toward me. "You're going to regret being this cold," he said, "when you calm down." I didn't move. Drive safe. That was it. No shouting. No tears. No second chances disguised as conversations. Just an ending. Or at least, that's what I thought. 3 days later, I got a text. Unknown number. She knows she handled it badly. Can you at least tell her this isn't permanent? I stared at the message. Not apologize. Not explain. Reassure. Like I was still responsible for managing his emotional stability after he had already replaced me. I replied once. It is permanent. Do not contact me again. Then I blocked the number. The next day, his sister, Megan, called. We had never been particularly close. She didn't waste time. Lucy, Daniel told me what happened. He said things have been complicated for a while. Complicated. I leaned back against the kitchen counter. Affairs aren't complicated, I said calmly. They're decisions. There was a pause. She tried again. He says it wasn't serious. I let out a small breath. Serious enough to hide. Serious enough to lie. Serious enough for me. Silence. Then she shifted tone. You don't just throw away 3 years without trying to fix it. I looked around my condo, at the empty spaces where his things used to be, at the quiet. I didn't throw anything away, I said. He did. I hung up. Blocked her number. By Monday, Daniel had moved online. Subtle at first. A black background quote about how men get punished for being honest about their emotional needs. A brunch photo captioned something about choosing peace over control. I didn't look for it, but people send things. Jenna, one of our mutual friends, texted me screenshots. Is this about you? I stared at the words. Then I sent her exactly one thing. A screenshot of his message from that night. Don't humiliate me like this. And a photo of the labeled bins in the lobby. Her reply came fast. Oh, that's not what he told people. No, it wasn't. That was the first crack. The second came Tuesday morning. I was walking through the office garage, coffee in one hand, keys in the other, when I saw him, leaning casually against the wall near the elevator, wearing my old navy hoodie, holding a paper bag from the cafe downstairs. Like this was normal. Like this was a scene he had already planned. I stopped a few feet away. You can't be here. He smiled. Soft, familiar, controlled. I just want 5 minutes. No. Lucy, please. I know how it looked, he said quickly, stepping forward slightly. I didn't move. It looked like an affair, I replied. Because it was one. He flinched. Just for a second. Then he recovered. That's not the point, he said. We were already broken before that. There's something unsettling about watching someone try to rewrite reality in real time. Like if they say it calmly enough, clearly enough, it might become true. I held his gaze. Leave. He stepped closer. If you throw away 3 years over one need, I finally admitted. I turned and walked straight to building security. Hi, I said evenly. I need this documented. The word hit him instantly. Documented. His expression shifted. Wow, he said, a sharp edge creeping in. So now I'm dangerous? I didn't answer. Because at that point, I was starting to realize something. This wasn't about regret. This wasn't about fixing anything. This was about control. And control doesn't stop just because you walk away. That afternoon, HR called me. Not casually. Not as a routine check-in. There was a careful tone in the woman's voice, the kind people use when they're trying to stay neutral in a situation that's already leaning towards something else. Lucy, we received a call this morning, she said. A man asked whether employees here are allowed to abandon partners after contributing to emotional neglect. I didn't even need to ask who it was. I closed my office door. I have documentation, I said. I can forward everything. There was a brief pause. Yes, she replied, almost relieved. Please do. So I did. Screenshots, call logs, the timeline from the rooftop dinner, the garage incident, every message that showed a clear pattern of contact after I had already told him to stop. Within an hour, they flagged his name. Not formally, not yet, but enough that if he showed up again, it wouldn't be brushed off as a misunderstanding. At 11:47 p.m. that night, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number, voicemail. I almost didn't listen to it, but something made me press play. I can see your kitchen light on. I froze. I know you're home, Lucy. Please stop acting like I'm a stranger. The message ended. And for the first time since the rooftop, something shifted inside me. Not fear. Awareness. That sentence meant one thing. He had been outside. Close enough to see my windows. Close enough to watch. I sat very still for a moment, replaying it in my head. Then I opened my laptop. The next morning, I filed a police information report. Not dramatic, not emotional. Structured. Screenshots, call logs, the garage incident, the HR note, the voicemail transcript, the pickup timeline. Paper matters. That was the moment the story changed. Because up until then, this had been a breakup. Messy, painful, complicated. Now, it was something else. And the strange part? I felt calm. Not happy, not healed. But steady. like I had finally stepped into something solid after months of standing on unstable ground. I started sleeping through the night again. I signed up for the certification course I had been putting off for months. I went back to the gym. Consistently. My condo felt different. Not empty. Quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything from you. Thursday night, I got an email from him. Subject line: please let me explain the difference. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. 4 paragraphs. Apology wrapped in justification. He said he was sorry if his words had been harsh, but I had been emotionally distant. He said he hadn't meant to hurt me, but I had stopped seeing him. He said what happened with Vanessa wasn't the point. It was just the symptom. There it was again. Reframing. Repackaging. Trying to turn a decision into a reaction. I didn't reply. I closed the email and moved on. Friday evening, after class, I grabbed dinner with someone from the course. His name was Brian. It wasn't a date. Not really. Just easy conversation. Work stories, travel complaints. The kind of interaction that doesn't require you to measure every word. No tension. No hidden meaning. Just normal. And apparently, that alone was enough. Because 3 weeks after the rooftop dinner, Daniel shifted again. The fake emergency came first. Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to answer. Lucy? A woman's voice said, breathless. This is Talia. I work with Daniel. I stayed quiet. He's at urgent care, she rushed on. He had a panic attack. He keeps asking for you. I think if you call, it might help calm him down enough for them to release him. I didn't respond right away. I just listened. Something about the tone felt off. Too urgent. Too rehearsed. Which urgent care? I asked. She told me. I hung up. Then I called the clinic directly. No patient by that name, the receptionist said. I tried a second location. Nothing. I stared at my phone for a moment. Then I texted Talia. There is no Daniel at either location. Do not contact me again. No reply. 2 days later, reception carried a flower arrangement to my desk. White roses. Glass vase. 3 coworkers watching as it was set down in front of me. The card read, "We were real before she was. Please don't throw us away." I looked at the words for a long moment. Then I took a photo of the flowers. The card. The florist label. Reception told me the order had been placed under a fake name. But the callback number? His. Into the folder. Then he contacted my mother. That part almost impressed me. The reach. The confidence. Like he still believed he had access to every part of my life. My mom called that evening. "Lucy," she said carefully, "why is this man telling me you abandoned him after he admitted he'd been feeling neglected?" I didn't get defensive. I didn't explain emotionally. I just forwarded everything. The timeline. The screenshots. The voicemail about my kitchen light. The fake urgent care call. The flowers. There was silence for a while after she read it. Then she called me back. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "He cheated, got caught, and now wants me to scold you for not being gentle about it?" "Yes." A pause. Then, firm, "Absolutely not." I leaned against the counter, exhaling quietly. She continued. "I told him if he contacts me again, I will happily sit next to you in court." I smiled slightly. "Thank you." That same night, another message. Another unknown number. "Getting your mother involved is low." I didn't reply. I didn't block it immediately either. I just took a screenshot, added it to the folder. Because at this point, it wasn't about reacting anymore. It was about building something clear, a pattern. And patterns are hard to argue with. By the time I contacted an attorney, I wasn't emotional about it anymore. I was organized. There's a difference. Emotion asks questions. Organization answers them. His name was Andrew Keller. Straightforward, mid-40s, the kind of man who doesn't waste words trying to sound impressive. I paid the consultation fee, $240, and handed him everything. Screenshots, call logs, voicemails, the garage incident, HR documentation, the flower delivery, my mother's interaction, the fake urgent care call. He went through it slowly, not reacting, just reading. Then he looked up at me and said, "You already have enough for a cease and desist. If he approaches you again after that, we escalate." I nodded. "Do it." The letter went out Monday, email and certified mail. Clear language, no ambiguity, no contact, direct or indirect. For 48 hours, nothing happened. And for a brief moment, I thought that might be it. That maybe finally he understood. I was wrong. Wednesday night, after certification class, Brian and I stopped for dinner near Hyde Park. It was quiet, easy, normal. We were halfway through paying the check when I felt it. That subtle shift in the room. I turned, and there he was. Daniel, standing a few feet away from the table. wearing the green shirt I bought him last summer, hairstyled, expression carefully controlled, like he had prepared for this, like he thought presentation would fix perception. He looked at Brian first, slowly. So this is why you moved on so fast. Brian didn't react. He just watched him. I set my card down on the table. Daniel, leave. He ignored me, still looking at him. Be careful, he said softly. She seems calm, but she can shut you out the second you don't meet her expectations. That was the moment something inside me settled completely. Not anger, not even irritation. Just certainty. I said his name once. Firm. Final. Daniel. He turned to me. You couldn't even fight for us, he said, over one mistake. Brian reached for his phone. The second he noticed, he reacted. Fast. His hand came down hard, knocking it out of his grip. The sound cracked against the floor. Everything shifted instantly. A server rushed over, then a manager, then security. And like a switch had flipped, Daniel's entire demeanor changed. His shoulders dropped. His voice broke. Tears. I just wanted to talk, he said, shaking his head. She won't even give me a chance to explain. The performance was almost precise, almost convincing. If I hadn't already seen the pattern, police were called. Statements taken. I didn't argue. Didn't explain. I just handed over my phone. And then, the folder. Everything. Screenshots, voicemails, timeline, even the printed copies I had started carrying in my bag. The officer flipped through them, slow and quiet. Then he looked at me. You need to get ahead of this, he said. I nodded. I already am. The next morning, I filed for a temporary protective order, affidavit, attachments, clear sequence of events, repeated unwanted contact after explicit request to stop. It was granted that afternoon. No contact, no third-party communication. Stay away from my home, workplace, car, and certification program. He was served Monday. And somehow, even that wasn't enough. 2 days later, another voicemail. Blocked number. You really made me look dangerous because I cared enough to fight for you. I didn't listen to it twice. I didn't think about it. I forwarded it directly to my attorney, added it to the hearing packet. Because at this point, there was no confusion left. Meanwhile, life kept moving. I passed my certification exam. My manager mentioned I was being considered for regional lead. Brian and I kept seeing each other. Slow, steady, no pressure. The kind of connection that doesn't need to prove anything to exist. The hearing was scheduled just under 2 months after the rooftop dinner. He showed up in a neutral outfit. Soft expression, measured posture, like he had studied how remorse is supposed to look. His attorney framed it predictably. Emotional distress, a painful breakup, attempts at closure that had been misinterpreted. My attorney didn't argue emotionally. He didn't need to. He just walked through the timeline. The rooftop, his statement about needing something I stopped giving him. The breakup, the packing, the controlled pickup, the messages, the garage incident, the HR complaint, the voicemail about my kitchen light, the fake emergency, the flowers, contacting my mother, the restaurant confrontation, the violation after the temporary order, no opinions, just facts. Because when you remove emotion, patterns speak for themselves. His attorney tried one last angle, said the relationship had already been failing, that what happened was complicated. That context mattered. My attorney asked one question. When you were confronted at the launch dinner, did you say you needed something she stopped giving you? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. In context, yes. That was enough. The judge read quietly for a few minutes, then looked up. Whatever happened inside the relationship ended when she told you it was over, he said. Everything after that is repeated unwanted contact. This court does not accept romantic justification for harassment. That was it. 18-month protective order. No contact. Stay 300 feet away from me. My home, my work, my routine. Any violation, consequences. Daniel cried. Real tears. Or maybe not. At that point, it didn't matter. Because he still looked at me like he expected something after. A conversation. A moment. Closure. There wasn't one. My attorney walked me out through a side exit. People like him think they're defending one mistake, he said. They don't realize the case is about everything that comes after. Exactly. A few things settled after that. Jenna apologized. Said she hadn't known the full story. His sister sent a short message. Said she understood now. I didn't reply. Vanessa, she disappeared from the picture. Not surprising. People who agree to exist in secrets rarely stay once everything becomes public. As for me, life became steady. In the best way. The promotion came through. Regional lead. Better money, more travel. Brian and I stayed simple. Honest. Calm. He knew everything. Had seen the order. And still stayed. My condo felt like mine again. I repainted the spare room, donated the things that never really felt like me, got rid of the candles he insisted made the place feel complete. Turns out, peace doesn't need decoration. I've thought a lot about why it ended so quickly for me. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the entitlement inside it. The assumption that his needs justified secrecy. That I would hear his explanation and immediately start competing for my own relationship. That I would take responsibility for something he chose. No, that was his mistake. He thought betrayal would trigger negotiation. Instead, it triggered clarity. If someone cheats and then explains it as something you failed to give them, pay attention. They're not confessing. They're assigning blame. And that's not something you fix.